Well, hey, it's good to see you guys there at YouTube land. Thank you, all you faithful Drunk Theology followers. We have a special treat. I'm here in the city of North Las Vegas, Nevada, and uh, I'm sitting here with a special guest, the Bandito Moreno over here. Uh,
That's me.
That's his name, so that's what we're giving to him. But we've come to discuss some things.
Yep.
And just have some conversations because people have been asking, when are you going to talk about stuff? And I guess theology isn't always stuff to people, and that's cool. I get it. But anyway, we just want to talk about what's going on, current events, what's happening, in our nation, and more importantly, what's happening in your life. What's with regards to the stay-at-home orders, stay safe orders. All these things that are in place. And as you can see, my guest here is being very courteous and not blowing his aerosol on me.
That's more for my own protection. You're coming from a hot spot in California, and I don't want to catch the Rona, as they call it.
The Rona. Well,
the Rona.
Oh, the Rona. Okay.
Got to get hip with the kids' lingo these days.
Well, I do have Corona. It's by TC Electronics, a great chorus. The Corona chorus. I recommend it to anybody as a guitar player. You want a good chorus? TC Electronics Corona. And they should market that more. I mean, they've had that out for 20 years now, but they should just market it.
Yeah, I don't know how well it's faring for the city of Corona to be.
I know.
You might think that's the epicenter of the big C little V. So.
Yeah, but
yeah.
How has life been affected here in Nevada?
It's been pretty good. Other than this thing, it's freaking hot. And that's how people been walking around all around here. I mean, a lot of people are kind of getting tired of it, so whenever you go to the store, you get about 50-50. Some are wearing them, some aren't.
Yeah.
It seems to be a little bit more relaxed here in Vegas than in other places.
Yeah. Well, I know where I'm at in Long Beach, they're just into it. They're just very serious about it. I just go about my business. I don't really leave too much anyway. But
yeah,
I went to one store and they were telling me, you need your mask, and I said, well, okay. And I just started to walk away. I said, okay, well, you won't sell this to me? Okay, fine. Thank you. I was very nice about it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they're no. And just wear a mask next time. I'm like. So I got thinking about it. I thought, you know what? I'm going to wear my ordination stole, because I'm an ordained minister. I'm going to wear my ordination stole and throw it around my face. And they'll see the cross, and they'll probably be offended by that.
Yeah.
So,
very true. Very true.
But how do you think the people, the way they've responded is just, to me, it's amazing. That they're willing to give up all of their rights almost, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's been the most, baffling to me is the willingness to comply with essentially unconstitutional laws.
Right.
So it's just been kind of interesting. I mean, you get a lot of different point of views, a lot of people that are complying, a lot of young people that are complying, begging people to, stay home and save life, or, all the we're alone together type stuff. But I don't quite buy into it. I think a lot of people are starting to get tired of it.
Right.
It's been too long, and so they're starting to just let's get back to normal.
Well, I think with young people, what it is this is the generation of the smartphone.
Yeah.
And they're very much they're used to, in essence, being isolated and socializing.
Yes.
Through through a smartphone, through an artificial means.
Yeah.
It's like a conditioning thing. that's been going on, and people not realizing it.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we are giving up a lot of our rights as citizens. I don't care of what nation, if it's
Yeah.
a democratic, free nation that have been doing this, they've been, sacrificing their rights, and all for what? That's the question, because in all honesty, while we don't have a vaccine, so people cannot be protected in that sense, especially those who are in the demographic that would be most affected by it,
Yeah.
the elderly and the young, uh, to the point of death. So we don't have a vaccine that will protect them like we do with the flu.
Yeah.
But even with our flu vaccine, if we didn't have our flu how was it? 40,000 a year die from the flu, I think, in the United States.
Yep.
Uh, if we didn't have a flu vaccine, how high would that number be?
Probably be the same.
Who knows, right? And, and and so yeah, so I understand we don't have a vaccine, so that's why, okay, we need to be careful. Fine, that's understandable, but do we shut down the economy? Shut down
Yeah.
our jobs, our way of life for something that may not mean anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think the response to it, I mean, it's interesting because I think it was under Obama, it was SARS,
Right?
killed 100,000 people in the U.S., if I'm not mistaken, um, before a state of emergency was declared. And there was never a shutdown of the economy because of it.
Right.
So,
Well, maybe because Obama didn't have an economy. Oh, just kidding. Let's not go down that road.
Yeah.
But.
Well, so it seems like it's highly politicized, that what we're going through right now. It's just an overreaction. I mean, I think there are some safety things that we need to take into consideration. Obviously, you don't want to be stupid about it. Like I've seen, it was the Corona challenge that these kids were going around licking toilet seats, and licked the toilet seat on an airplane. I barely use the bathroom on an airplane. I fly a lot for work, so I mean, every week I'm on a plane going somewhere. So this has been a nice little break for me to be home for this last month and a half, 2 months, because I'm usually on a plane every week going somewhere. So yeah, I wouldn't even, stand up and pee in a bathroom on an airplane. Nonetheless, lick the toilet seat. I mean, good Lord. But, don't be stupid. Take your precautions. It seems like everything is always changing of how it's spread. It's on service touch. The mask is, they were telling everybody not to buy masks. Don't be buying all these masks because it's not going to help. And now they're telling everybody to wear a mask. So it's ever changing. I see people all the time on the road.
Yeah.
Wearing masks, like today, we saw that
right.
lady. Saw a lady in her car. She had a mask on. She had gloves on, and no, she didn't have a mask on. I take that back. She had the gloves on. Her significant other, was her husband or her boyfriend or whatever. The other person in the car with her had nothing on. He had clothes on, but he didn't have a mask, didn't have gloves on. But here she is sitting with gloves on. And she's just touching her face all over the place with the gloves. It doesn't make any sense.
Right, because
that's
the virus could be on the glove.
Yeah, you might as well not wear the glove. So it just doesn't make any sense to me on that part. It's like, if you're gonna do it, do it. If you're gonna wear your gloves and wear a mask, wear gloves at the same time, because otherwise, why you're only half protecting yourself? You're touching all kinds of surfaces when you're at the store. The keypad, whatever.
Right.
A lot of times, those workers are trying their best to make sure that they're wiping down the stuff after every use, but they may not get to it before you get there. You know? So I think it's one of those things where you kind of risk it. There's a serious risk for people with underlying conditions. I think that's the majority of it. But that's the same with flu. The most people that are affected are majority of people that are affected are underlying conditions and the elderly. Um, you know,
Yeah,
the same that people that are affected strongly with the flu.
exactly.
You know, I wouldn't want to, you know, wish it upon anybody. Of course, I mean, I wouldn't wish the flu upon anybody. I mean, good lord, especially when you get it real bad. You know, but I don't know. It's an interesting time, that's for sure. I think what's going on politically, um, and throughout the country with all these laws that are trying to push, or these mandates, is there more of a mandate than a law or strong suggestion? Um, is an experiment to see how far they can push the American people uh, into compliance.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're seeing all these. I mean, people. The dude that got arrested, I think, what, Huntington Beach, something like that,
Yeah.
paddleboarding out in the beach. He's in the ocean by himself. I mean, it's the epitome of social distancing. There's nobody around, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
leave the guy alone. You don't need 3 lifeguard boats coming at him to arrest the guy for paddleboarding. I mean, there's nobody else there. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The guy that got arrested in the park, I can't remember where it was. It was in California or in Illinois or something like that. He got arrested. He was throwing a ball with his daughter in the park.
Right. Yeah.
And they arrested him.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody else was around. I mean, so what's the problem? You know, it's very interesting. I mean, what's going on in the compliance? You know, with the demand for compliance.
Yeah.
You know, with people just being out, even by themselves, but they're out of the house. I mean, it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it has to do, I mean, ultimately, because, you know, when you look at it from a prophetic point of view, you're looking at it like, you know, yeah, for example, everyone thinks like the 7-year tribulation is a 7-year. It may in fact be a 7-year tribulation. I'm not here to discuss that necessarily, but you know, they think everything is all compacted, not understanding. You know, there's a long preparation and conditioning is going on, and
Yeah.
you know, the powers that be, you know, the prince of the power of the air. I mean, they're dealing in a time frame of eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, if this takes another 1,000 years, to them that's nothing. You know.
Yeah.
So, but it is a conditioning that we see that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, getting people used to the idea of, you know, I think what was it? Something about putting some kind of tracking for COVID under the skin or a tattoo.
Yeah. There was Bill Gates.
Bill Gates, yeah.
Yeah.
My one-time hero.
So he was pushing for a vaccine and using nanotech that would essentially, I can't remember if it was either like a tattoo, not visible on the skin that would last for 5 years, so you keep track of you. And then there's also, because there's microchipping that's been going on, it's been happening, and he's a proponent of that as well, you know, trying to push that in order to keep track of these people that have had the virus. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's insane, and people that are like, yeah, we need to do this. It's
Right, because
they
you have
don't
people
look
in fear for their life.
correct, and they're pushing it that way, right? I mean, that's
Mhm.
what you see the hysteria that's
Yeah.
going on for something that's not.
2 million people are going to die. 1.5 million people are going to die. Well, 250.
Yeah, every
1,000.
every week it's down. They're like, oh, maybe we didn't need all these hospital beds. Maybe we didn't need all this. Like all this
Yeah.
panic that's being pushed to, in my personal opinion, again, I think it's a political play to purposefully crash the economy because of how well the economy has been doing.
Right.
And I think the left side of things, they see who their candidate is. And there's just no way, out of all of them that were running, that they're not going to win an election. There's just nothing they can do about it. And I think they're, you know, you see the powers that be that control media, there's like what 4 or 5 companies that own all the media.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah, I know.
it's kind of interesting to see that, and they're pushing this agenda for whatever reason. I mean, would they come to that? Uh, those kinds of what word am I looking for? I don't even know. You know,
Yeah.
they're going that far.
Right.
They're that desperate to win an election. It caused me to think, well, what would to crash your own economy, to put people out of jobs, you know? And it's just interesting. It's like, why would that be something that you would want to do?
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to be the play.
Yeah.
It seems to be the play.
It's almost like that's how desperate they are.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting. That's why I think, like, if you haven't watched the presidential news conference every day, I think it's genius that they're broadcasting those every day,
Mhm.
because the room is filled with all the media reporters.
Yeah.
And you see them ask the questions. You see how they ask the questions.
Yeah.
And then you get to see later on in their print and on their online and on their broadcast how they're misrepresenting the answers that were given.
Yeah.
You know, if you watched
the actual
press conference.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the beauty. That's why I'm so glad that they're doing that, because and a lot of American people are beginning to see it. And they're like,
they're tired. I mean,
and that's why I think even now you're seeing people beginning to rebel against the stay-at-home order.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's just it's funny as you see things like on left and right, and a lot of people are like, oh, you shouldn't talk about politics. And I was like, no, there's you know, if you look at what's going on in the world today politically, or in America, because that's where we're at, the left has gone so far left. So far left. It's levels of insanity. Mm-hmm. You know, it doesn't even make sense. And I think people on the left that are centric left, that would be considered possibly, you know, what you would call a JFK Democrat.
Right.
You know, pretty much pro-American, pro-2A, you know, pro-First Amendment, but they just have some differences on the social aspects and what the government should be doing. But for the most part, they're left centrist. They're seeing how far gone the Democratic Party has gone, and they're like, I'm done. Mm-hmm. You know, because that's not what I stand for.
Yeah,
I stand for something totally different, and they're going to vote right just because they seem like to align more right now compared to where their party has gone.
Yeah, and the right has come.
The right has moved along as well. You know,
who are they're more like JFK Democrats.
Yeah, it's you know, very centrist, and it's. I mean, I think that's where a good balance is, but the left has just gone. They've just gone so far left that people are starting to be tired. They're sick of it. They see this, like the stay-at-home orders. They're tired. They're done. You know, you see the protests that were going on in Michigan. They did that.
Yeah.
That big Operation Gridlock thing just to protest in Lansing, and it's just been. It's interesting. I think people are going to start to kind of rebel and be done with it. You know,
yeah.
they're tired because they see that it's not as bad as what was being pushed. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, when all this started, I was for work in Seattle. I had to keep flying in and out of that airport for 4 weeks straight.
Wow.
While this was happening, while that place was a hot spot.
Yeah.
You know, back and forth. And I mean, my boss, by the time I kind of was like in the beginning of it, just kind of like, you know, hey, are we keeping an eye on this thing? Because the news, I mean, reports that were coming out of China where people were dying left and right. I mean, and, you know, it was kind of crazy. So I was like, you got to keep an eye on this. And, you know, by the end of it, by the tail end of my trip, I think I had to go to Spokane, and they're like, "Are you comfortable going there?" I was like, "Look, man, I want to finish this project because it's a month-long project, so I want to finish this thing up. I'm gonna go, and I'll be all right, you know."
Yeah.
And I was fine. I mean, I was home and I was here, after that, and just kind of took us. I mean, I think it's one of those things where you're just causing more panic than what there should
Right.
be.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's kind of like, okay, so what's the end game? Because I look at it just from the perspective of like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and it has to be not only just because of the democratic thing, but I think more from a spiritual aspect because
Yep.
there are other things that are happening simultaneously.
Yes. Yes.
Like with like I said, there's been the conditioning of the mind.
Yep.
Young people have been conditioned. Even our generation has been. There's been a conditioning of these generations.
Yeah.
Toward really a one world order.
Yep.
And toward an anti Judeo-Christian ethic.
Yes.
Lifestyle. And so we see things happening, and what I see happening is like with the VR, which was something that virtual reality. And when that first came out, everyone was thinking it was really cool, and I immediately said, "No, that's a way to control people's minds." And now there are things that are coming about that's like genius.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to share with some of that?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of interesting where things are going, like what we talked about before, the spiritual side of things, and what's going on, what things are moving towards. I mean, we have to look at where we're at from a technical side, from technology, and what the Book of Revelation talks about. When it talks about the two prophets that would be on the earth during that time of tribulation,
right?
When they're put to death, that all the world will see. We're primed for that.
Yeah.
I mean, some people in the poorest of countries, they've got cell phones. Smartphones. Yeah, we're primed for a literal all the world will see. I mean, it's very interesting. People are starting to accept the microchipping idea. I mean, that kind of came out in the late '80s, early '90s, with the there's a microchip the size of a rice grain that we can put, and they started using it for animals.
Right.
My dog, I refuse to get a microchip because he will not accept the mark of the beast under no circumstances. This is a Christian home. But, and I mean, there was a story that happened on the Today Show a couple of years ago where they had that microchipping party. Essentially, there was a company that was doing microchipping, and they had their employees getting microchipped, and it was voluntary, obviously, but they were, this testing thing they were doing and paying for snacks at the vending machine just by putting their hand up to the machine. And it's just, and the reporters that were the people, I don't know what you call them now, because they're really not journalists, what they do. The story they were trying to tell, I mean, they were just like, isn't this great? Isn't this wonderful? And people are like, yeah, this is awesome, And we're so primed for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't consider myself an older generation. I'm like the tail end of Gen X, but even our generation's kind of like, I don't know about that, but like millennial and Gen Z, I mean, they're prepped for it.
Yeah.
Prepped for it, ready to go. Like, this is awesome. If I don't have to carry my wallet around or worry about losing that, let's do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're already looking at, you have to look at your information. A lot of people are carrying around their cell phones with a case that has slots for their cards and their ID. It's all one. Because why? Because I'm more inclined or more likely to lose my wallet than to lose my phone.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because you're glued to your phone.
Yeah.
Constantly. So they're prepped for something like that. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting from that perspective. Then when we start to talk about like virtual reality. Virtual reality has been around since the late 80s, early 90s when they were first coming out with some interesting stuff. Not as realistic as it is now, obviously, but I mean,
Mhm.
big things you can wear, and you're watching, you can turn your head, and the video turns, but it's all digital. You know,
Right. Yeah.
was it like Polygon or whatever? The who was the
Oh.
that talking head guy? That
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
but you know, it was just real, pretty archaic compared to what it is today. Um, but yeah, if you look at there was a promo that was pretty interesting that Microsoft did. They've taken it down since because of the massive amount of negative comments. But they had this woman promoting their virtual reality program that they're going to be, putting out, and her name is Marina Abramovich, and she's well documented because she's supposedly this performance artist, but a lot of her work is satanic,
Mhm.
and it's very ritualistic. Um, and if you have any knowledge of the satanic and rituals that happen, you know that what she's doing and what she's part of is something bigger than what's being portrayed in the media as good.
Yeah.
A lot of work with uh, making cakes and whatnot, like realistically looking like bodies, and having these parts. This is not um, what people. Oh, that's conspiracy theories. No, it's not. It's well documented.
Right. That's true.
She does these massive parties for celebrities, for politicians, for all these things, and doing spirit cookings and these rituals that she does for them. They had her. If you've seen any of her events, you know this is something this isn't right. Like there's something demonic about this. Um, when they have her as their spokesperson for this VR, and you walk through her exhibits and all this stuff, and like what we talked about, you're essentially, if you were to go into something like that, this could be taken further
Right.
and to practice these types of satanic rituals within your own home
Mm-hmm.
without the mess.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And it kind of opens up. People are hungry for spirituality. I mean, you
Mhm.
see that however they're seeking it out. I mean, they've been turned off by the church for whatever reason. Some legit, some just
Right.
too high expectation. Not because the church. I mean, there's some that build themselves up to be holier than thou when they're not, and you just set yourself up for failure because we're human.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't look at the human person who may have disappointed you, who may have upset you, who may have come across from at you differently, and look at them as if they are Christ, because they are
Right.
not. You need to look at Christ and look at them as a human being, that they're going to make mistakes. But either way, people are hungry for spirituality,
Right.
Whether that be in yoga, or just different any kind of spiritual journey that people like to say that they're on. So they're hungry for it, and with VR, um, you could have the latest
Yeah.
person there, and you could go through your mantra.
Yeah. Go through
right there,
whatever
and it's so
ceremonies or rituals.
yeah, and it's so dangerous. It's so dangerous because you're
Because your
your
mind is in
gone.
it's in an augmented reality,
an augmented
and
reality.
you're not conscious of the reality that you're actually in.
Exactly. So I mean that leaves you open to the demonic. Essentially.
Yeah, infiltration.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Possession.
Yeah. It's dangerous. I mean.
Yeah.
Extremely dangerous. And I mean people get concerned about. MK Ultra type stuff, mind control, Manchurian Candidate stuff.
Yeah. That
is, in my opinion, I mean, MK Ultra is obviously a real program. They say they've shut it down. I don't think they have, but for utilizing mind control, and what better way
Yeah.
to control the masses.
Right.
You know, and then something like that, then, and people willingly inviting it to their house. It's not forced.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because
it sounds so bizarre, right?
It
sounds
does.
so weird and it's out there, but it's worth talking about because
yes. I mean, you look at it from a spiritual perspective, and I think a lot of Christians, they don't do that now.
Yeah.
They're so afraid of that side of things that they don't talk about the spiritual. Well, I mean, they like to talk about the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God is here. This and that, let's
make a space.
Let's make a space for God. Like, you're in His space,
yeah,
because He's all over the place. So, how about you ask Him to allow you to feel His presence because you're not making a space for Him. It's His space, But anyway, they talk about that. The Spirit of God and this and that. Well, if there is a good spiritual realm, there is a evil spiritual realm, and you have to equivalate or talk about it equally.
Yeah,
because
acknowledge it
because it's there, and it's not like you're immune to it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can feel the presence of God, you can feel the presence of evil.
Yeah,
so you have to acknowledge both sides of things. And I think the church has gotten away from that. And they just concentrate on the one. It's like, no, you need to concentrate on the other as well. Maybe not concentrate, but at least teach your people about it and the dangers of it, and not to fall face forward into these things just because it's cool.
Yeah.
And
the other things I think the church is worried about, date setters. We're not setting any dates here. Because we have had, especially in the 70s, we have. But there was so much going on then, that were just baby steps to things that have been taking place over the last 4 decades, and unfortunately, some good pastors, good honest, pastors, made the mistake of naming naming names and and giving dates. It's not that, although I know you said it's going to be 2036.
That's what I say. I would say that's my own theory. I'm always thinking of just different things. Like, I don't know, the way we're setting up, and if you look at the biblical aspect of things, everything kind of is broken up by 2,000 year periods. So if you go from 2,000 years from the death of Christ, death and resurrection of Christ, it's a period between 2030 and 2036. If you want to, but I don't. Stick to that. It's just an interesting theory to me.
Well, see, I stick with Dr. Gene Scott's thing because it's the one that makes total sense to me. Every year in the feast, the feast
of trumpets,
the Feast of Trumpets.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that's when you look at it from the Book of Revelations, that when the trumpet's blown and the rapture happens, it's the Feast of Trumpets.
Yeah.
And so he says, of course, he was exaggerated the other way. It's like, live like hell the way you want.
Yeah.
But come September,
behave yourself. Behave yourself. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it's kind of it's definitely an interesting time. You look at the precursors, you look at all those what is it in when it comes to prophecy, there's like the small.
Yeah, well, yeah, because all the prophetic words, the majority of the prophetic words were words that were given for the immediate time, but it also was a type of the future event.
Which is very interesting, because if you look at like that,
and only God can do that.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah, I remember after 9/11. Geez, it's been almost 20 years now. 9/11. Think about that. That's
I know,
nuts, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was barely a month married at the time, and when it happened. But I remember.
You still married?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost. It'll be 19 years this year. But I remember we had a.
Sorry, ladies.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. They're digging my Corona haircut. But no, I remember, like, after that event had happened, I think it was that very next weekend, we, if not closer to the day, we had we had a special prayer gathering at the church.
Uh-huh.
And I remember just being there in this prayer meeting and just reading the word, and I was just, I don't know if the Lord was guiding me or what, but I read, I think it was Revelations 18, when it talked about the people crying, all the world crying, the towers have fallen. You know, they were buying from where they bought merchant and all this stuff.
Right.
It's like, this is exactly what's being described as the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Which tripped me out. I mean, I was just like, oh my gosh, like what is going on? I mean, it's like I read that before. I've been through the book of Revelation before, but I never hit a reality or hit a chord like it did because of what just happened.
Yeah.
You know, and we've talked about, when you look at the book of Revelation, there's no entity in that really would equate in America.
Right. Yeah.
Per se. So, I mean, America's, I would say non-existent, but not
it's certainly diminished power.
Not a major power when that stuff takes place. So it's kind of an interesting.
It is. It's fascinating. I mean, and you know what's interesting, you know, and you say, well, yeah, but that's in chapter 18. So, I mean, everything else is supposed to have already happened. You know, not necessarily. I mean, you know, like, you know, first of all, you know, John, when he wrote it, he wasn't like sequentially writing it. He was writing parts that were revealed to him at various times. Yeah. You know, and it was all put together, but it wasn't like supposed to be like supposed to be like all in time order, all in chronological order. Yeah. You know, I mean, I'm sure, like, for example, like, the prophecy of Jeremiah, you know, can these dead bones raise again? Yeah. You know, I mean, and for us to all of a sudden see in 1948 a nation that had not existed for almost 2,000 years, all of a sudden existed in one day. Yeah. God did that. Nation of Israel. Boom. Yep. You know, and you know, it's interesting. A lot of people aren't even aware of that. Even I know people of my generation, they're not aware of, like, Israel wasn't around as a nation for 2,000 years. They didn't exist. Yep. You know, and somehow they survived because there were all these Christians trying to kill them because they killed Jesus. Yeah. Yeah. You know? And I mean, talk about horrible theology. Yes. Yeah. You know, but it must, like, people who follow the word and follow the prophecies, that must have been like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Yeah. On the one hand, exciting. On the other hand, terrifying. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, it just sets up for getting closer and closer to the day of the Lord. And I mean, it's exciting, and it's, you know, at the same time. But I mean, I remember as a kid just being in church and people were thinking, like, any day now. Oh, yeah. You know? And it's just like, oh my God, you know. And for me, I was just like so terrified of it because even as a small kid, I wanted to be married, I wanted to have family, I wanted to do all this stuff. Right. And I'm not going to get to do that if the Lord comes back. Yeah. You know, and then later on, you know, as I was exposed to one of my favorite movies, I was exposed to The Return of the Jedi, which changed my life, you know. You know, so, you know, getting into Star Wars and whatnot, and knowing that there was a prequel story and a story after, and just, I remember telling a friend, I think I was like in 8th grade or something, I hope the Lord doesn't come back before Lucas is able to make those movies. Now I'm just like, I wish the Lord came back after he made those, before he made those movies. But, you know, just those types of things, and you know, always in your mind. I mean, there would be times where I couldn't sleep at night because thinking about eternity. Yeah. And like, good Lord, it's a long time. Yeah. You know, and just constantly worried about that, you know, and just like, then finally praying the peace of God just come over me so I can get some sleep, you know. Yeah. But, you know, just coming to that reality. And those are just things that you go through when you're younger and stuff. And just come to the reality. It's like, you know what? I've come to the reality that, you know, my mind here on earth is a finite mind. Yeah. And when we're gone into glory, you're changed, you're renewed. And I'm sure my mind's not going to be like, oh, God, we're going to be here for how long? You know? Because, I mean, if you think now,
you think you're going to live forever. You know, I mean, you could be dead tomorrow, but part of where we're at now is you don't think about that.
No.
You know, you just think you're just going to grow old and eventually get there. And, you know, Christ may come back before then. Rapture may happen before that. It may not.
Right.
But all you got to know is that, you know what, it's a day closer. So my thing is to continue to teach your kids, you know, teaching my kids about God, about the Lord, and you know, we'll get into the rapture and those types of things.
Yeah.
Because eventually it's going to just dwindle down to be nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
It'll be, I mean, how else do people will be so deceived? I mean, it's funny just to see the church, a lot of people in the church deceived and manipulating scripture to fit their theology or to hide their own sin, or, you know, to make things okay that, you know, because as a society we've made it okay. Doesn't mean that the word of God has changed, and it's not.
Right.
You know, so it's kind of, you know, the church is kind of backed down on a lot of stuff, and you lose that relationship, you know, and that where what Christ has taught us and what He's trying to say and how to be a believer and how to spread the word.
Yeah.
You know, and be truthful.
Mm-hmm.
I think by not being truthful, you're hurting more than helping.
Right.
You know, and I think, you know, a lot of that's been lost. And
exactly, be truthful. I mean, isn't that what I think I love Jordan Peterson, who, you know, of course, is just a psychologist. But I mean, I love, you know, one of the chapters in his book, 12 Rules, is, you know, always tell the truth, or at least don't lie.
Yeah, exactly.
At least don't lie.
Yeah,
you know, and it's true. The church, at least don't lie.
Don't lie. Yeah, if you don't want to address the issues, then just don't lie about it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of interesting the times that we're in. You know, it's for me, it's fun to dig into these things and dig into a lot of, you know, what people would say, like they call me conspiracy theorist or whatever, but I don't care. You know, I tell them, look, conspiracy theorist is a phrase that CIA came up with to cause disinformation. Say, no, those people are crazy over there.
Yeah,
even though they're the ones doing things over here. You know, so I mean, it's funny because it's just, I love,
and that's documented stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's
not conspiracy theory stuff. I mean, this is like government.
Legit. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting stuff. It's fun for me. I mean, some of the stuff that you read is like, well, that's kind of out there, but other stuff is like, yeah, that lines up with, you know, what's happening spiritually.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very interesting. If you know that they don't participate in their own drug, you know, there's a picture that I like to laugh at. It's funny because it's a picture of Mark Zuckerberg, and he's in this auditorium, and everybody in the auditorium's got their VR goggles on. He does not.
Wow.
You know, it's like, don't take your own drug. You know, don't get high on your own supply.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Type of thing. So it's like, yeah, there. You know, there's another picture I saw of Zuckerberg, and it's like, well, if he's doing this, then maybe I should be doing this. Is he's got on his laptop a piece of tape covering the camera?
Yeah.
A piece of tape covering the mic. So if there's, you know,
yeah, I know,
to tell you there, you know, it's like they're always listening.
Yeah, so grandma's not so crazy.
No, she's not. What that lens looking at me, you know? Well, my FBI guy is gonna be, you know, shooting me a text about, hey, what are you doing? You know, but
it all sounds like you said that. But the scriptures do talk about all these events that are taking place. Yeah. You know, and we have to be aware that there's like the spiritual realm going on.
Yep.
And there's the political realm that it operates through.
Yes.
You know,
that's a big thing. I mean,
you know,
when you read Heiser's book.
Yeah. Excellent.
You know,
excellent.
What was the name
David
of that?
Heiser, The Unseen Realm.
The Unseen Realm. I mean, you start to have some pretty deep understanding of the spirit realm, and very interesting. I mean, if you have,
if
you listeners have time,
it's
heavy.
It's heavy and it's academic.
Yes.
I mean, it's totally academic. If
yes.
you know, he's not about Holy Ghost bumps and
Yeah,
I don't even think
it's
he's
very academic.
yeah
It's very interesting. I mean myself, I'm not. I get distracted too much when I read, so I like to listen on Audible and do that. So I would recommend listening to it. It's really good.
yeah
But when you understand that, it opens up so many things
right
as to what's happening in the spirit realm and dominions and
yeah
principalities
and what all that
what
really
it,
means.
what it really means.
From the Hebrew
Yeah,
frame of mind and the times it was written, and
Yeah.
it's just incredible, you know. But yeah, so we don't want to freak people out. But at the same time, it's like they need to know.
Yeah.
All this stuff's going on. There's a political reality that we're in.
Yeah.
And the reality is, in my opinion, the virus, as horrible as it is not as horrible as they say it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's not anywhere near as terrible as they have portrayed it to be.
Yeah.
And they've taken advantage of the situation to, at the very least, perform, I think, an experiment.
Yeah.
How much can we control the American public?
Yeah.
We've seen that happen in Europe for the last 20 years, and they're beginning to rise up. You
Yeah.
have France rising up. They're saying, you know what?
Yep.
Enough
Yellow vests.
of this. Because they're losing their cultural identity.
Yeah.
The same with the Brits. They're losing their cultural identity because they're trying to be America.
To meld into
and America is different. America is the great experiment. It's not the same. Our cultural identity is that we are independent.
Yeah.
That's our cultural identity, regardless of race, regardless of color,
Yeah.
regardless of your social economic position, regardless of your spiritual beliefs or lack of spiritual beliefs.
Yep.
Whatever. All of us. The one thing it is to be American is to be we're independent. We're free.
Yeah. That's I think so ingrained in us as Americans is just that the independence that we have and the freedoms that we have. That I don't think that these lockdowns and these shutdowns and all this stuff is going to last very much longer, because people are tired of it and they don't want to have their freedoms infringed upon, their rights infringed upon, and once they see that what's really happening, they'll rise up.
Yep. Yeah, I think so. Well, Matt, I've been here this evening, guys, with Matt Brown, and famous bass player and church musician, and most of all, a lover of God. His name should be Timotheus, but anyway, Matt, you want to take us out in prayer?
Better, I like Matthew better because it's not just the lover of God. I'm a gift from God.
That's right, Matthew, the gift of God. Yes, and I named him that because I was told to by God. I guess so. It would remind me as he was growing up that he was my gift. But he has 4 gifts of his own now.
Yes.
So, but you want to take us out in prayer?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Heavenly Father, we just come before you, Lord, and we thank you for this time. We just ask for peace for those who may be struggling with anxiety, Lord God, about what's happening, or fear of what's happening, God, and what it means, what it all means, or what's going to happen, the unknown, Lord. I pray that you would just give them peace that passes all understanding, Lord. That it would just come over them now, Lord. I pray that you would just keep your hand upon our country, keep your hand upon our nation, Lord. Around the world, God, keep your hand upon those who are ill, Lord, that are this thing has taken them, Lord. I pray that you would just do your work, let your will be done.
Yes.
Whatever is happening, we know that there is a purpose and a reason, and let it be to your glory, God. We just ask you to just bless this podcast, Lord. I think it's a good thing that with what's going on, what Pastor Charles is doing. I pray that you would just let it be blessed and continue on and continue to grow. And we thank you for it in your name. Amen.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt.
Yep, no problem.
All right. And we'll see you guys
Next time.
week.
We talk about some more crazy stuff.
That's right. Depending on how many likes we get on this.
Yeah.
So remember, subscribe. Remember, to go to the different podcasts. It's all right there in the description with different platforms we're on. And please go to our Patreon page or my Patreon page.
On mine.
And Drunk Theology's Patreon page. And just go there and let me know how you liked the episode. And we'll have more of these. Take care. God bless. Goodbye.